Hey everyone, welcome back to another Grafana Quick Start. Today we're diving into one of the most powerful ways your team can understand sales performance, which is by connecting Salesforce with Grafana. I'll be taking you step by step through the entire process, from setup to pulling your Salesforce data into Grafana so your org's no longer flying blind. Let's get started. Okay, so before we get right into it, I just want to add that the Salesforce data source is available to all tiers of Grafana Cloud, which means any free or paid Grafana Cloud plans have access to this, as well as any activated on-prem Grafana Enterprise licenses. All right, so now we need to create a connected app in Salesforce. How do you do this? Well, in Salesforce, you go into the gear icon in the top right-hand corner and click on Setup. This will open up a new tab in your browser. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of different options yet again. When you see Platform Tools, under there, you'll see a drop-down for apps. In here, you'll see App Manager, the Marketplace, Connected Apps, External Client Apps, Lightning Bolt, etc. And this can kind of be overwhelming. But essentially, all we need to know here is the external client apps and the connected apps. What you do is you go into external client apps, and under settings, if you're an admin, which you'll need to be in this case, you'll see that there's the allow creation of connected apps, and this might be toggled off. You'll want to toggle this on, and then you'll want to click on new connected app. Here, you'll be brought to the configuration menu for your new connected app. Right here, we'll name our connected app, and I'm just going to call this Demo for Grafana. And this will automatically fill in the API name once I click out of it. You'll want to give your contact email because that's mandatory. And then all the rest of the options are actually optional, so you don't have to do anything there. Next, you'll see that there's the API, which is to enable OAuth settings. This is super important because the Grafana data source actually provides or offers two forms of authentication, that is through the credentials or JWT flow. In this case, we're just going to use the basic credentials flow, but the documentation also supports JWT, so go take a look at that if that's how you want to configure it. It's also important to note that the Salesforce data source uses the OAuth 2.0 username password flow. So you'll see that there's also a callback URL in the configuration menu for your connected app, and that's actually not utilized. So you can set it to any valid URL. For example, you could literally set it to HTTPS localhost, right? It really doesn't matter. So fill that out, whatever you want, but you do have to put some sort of callback URL because that's a mandatory field. Next, you'll see that there's use digital signatures. You don't need to toggle that on. Then you'll want to select your OAuth scopes. Now this has changed. In the old version of Salesforce, you would have seen something like access and manage your data in parentheses API. They actually switched that permission. So now what you'll want to do is you'll want to go down to manage user data via APIs, and then it'll be in parentheses APIs. You'll want to click on that, and you'll want to add it to your selected OAuth scopes. It's actually all you need. Next, you'll see that there's a bunch of different options like enable client credential flows, require secret for refresh token flow, web server flow, PKCE. You actually don't need any of these toggled on. You can enable the web server flow or the refresh token flow, but you don't have to. That's completely optional. The rest of what you're looking for is really all defaulted, right? So you don't need to add any more configuration. We can just click save in this case. And you'll see that it says changes can take up to 10 minutes to take effect. Deleting a parent org also deletes all connected apps with OAuth settings enabled. We'll click continue. And then this will take just a few minutes, so like it says, almost 10 minutes to really take effect. But what we can do is we can start to set up the configuration for this in Grafana. Now to find the data source in Grafana, to start configuring this, we'll go into Grafana, and under the data sources, we'll click on add new data source, and we'll look for Salesforce. Now, if Salesforce isn't already installed, what you'll do is you'll go into the connections. You'll do a search for Salesforce, and then you'll need to install that. Now, I already have this installed, so I'm just going to click Add New Data Source from here. It would have been the same flow if I went into Data Sources and added one there. We're just going to call this Salesforce, and then we're going to start getting up and running with our credentials. So we'll need to enter in our credentials. And if you're wondering where you can find this by going into Salesforce in the top right-hand corner and clicking on your profile picture and then clicking on settings under your name. Now in here, you'll see that there's like personal information, and your email and username will actually be there as well. So your username is what you're going to need for Grafana. We'll go into username, pop that in there. And then you'll need your password for how you actually log into Salesforce. So go my password. And then we'll need our security token, consumer key, and consumer secret. This is where things get a little bit interesting. So the security token, you might have one, you might not. And if you do need one, what you can do, this is pretty easy. You just go into your view profile in Salesforce in the top right-hand corner. You click on settings. This will bring you to your personal information dropdown, and you'll see that there's a reset my security token option. You'll reset your security token. This will actually send you an email with the new security token you need. I'm going to click to reset my security token, and then this will send me a new token in my email. I'm going to go into Grafana, and I'm going to paste that into the security token field. And then I need to get my consumer key, which is my connected app consumer key, and then my connected app consumer secret. How do I do this? Well, we'll jump back into Salesforce and where we were in the setup with all the apps, and we'll go under App Manager. We'll go in here, and we'll click on View. In View, you'll see that there is a consumer key and secret. We'll click on the Manage Consumer Details, and then this will actually send you another email to verify your identity. This will then bring you to all the Manage Connected App details you need. So the consumer key and the consumer secret, we'll grab both of those credentials and we'll actually pop those into Grafana. And then we will choose our environment, which in this case is a sandbox for me. And you'll see that the data source is working and connected. Okay, so now let's jump right back into Grafana and start to explore this data. If you go in the left-hand navigation menu and click on Explore, you'll see that there are all of our data sources at the top, and we can select from this. We'll look for our Salesforce one specifically. And then you'll see that we have a bunch of different query types and sort of this like rich editor for the Salesforce data source. You'll see that there's SOQL editor, which is sort of the standardized way in Salesforce to writing SQL queries. So if you want to pull something very custom, you can do so. We also have the easy to use query builder, which is more point and click, and you can just choose from a bunch of drop-down items. And then we also have the reporting tab. So if you've already created some reports in Salesforce and you want to pull those directly into Grafana, you can. So let's just jump back into the query editor and we'll do something simple, right? We'll look at the opportunity entity and we'll just select all the fields. We want to get everything back. We'll add no filters. We won't order by anything. We'll limit this to 100 and then we can run this query. If we maybe wanted to then drill down further, we can add a filter and then we can look at something like closed, or actually let's look at if one is true. And then this will show us all of our won deals. So maybe we want to track like how much money we've brought in or revenue we've brought in the last quarter per se, right? So we'll want to look at that data and then we can start to visualize that. So maybe we want to then add this to a dashboard. We'll just click open in a dashboard. And then maybe what we'll want to do here is change this. So we'll go into the edit tab. We'll make this, let's say a stat, right? And you'll see that there's a bunch of different like data points that we get now. And let's say we maybe want to aggregate this, right? So let's do the sum, and then we'll get the sum of amount, and we'll just mark this as total count. So we'll still filter by one, but you can see now that this is the amount of data that, or the amount of money that we've essentially brought in throughout the quarter. Now, what we can do is we can change the unit. So if we wanted to do something like a standard unit, and click on currency, we can do dollars, and you can see that we brought in $54.6 billion, which is a crazy amount of money. This is all fake dummy data, but essentially this is how you can start to visualize your sales data. And if you want to pull in data about your sales team, right, you can do that as well because there's going to be entities for that in Salesforce. So that's the video. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope you understood and got how to get up and running with the Salesforce Enterprise data source. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below and I'll catch you all in the next video. All right, take it easy.